I think I'm going to get started. It doesn't matter if people are going to join a little bit late. The first bit will be fine to catch up on. Right. Thank you so much, everyone who has joined. It's nice to have you all here on one of the last working days before the Christmas holidays. I hope everybody is starting to feel ready to celebrate Christmas, even after this crazy, crazy year. I can't decide whether I am more excited than usual about having a Christmas break or whether I just cannot really be bothered. Still sitting on the fence with that one, but I do hope that everyone else is looking forward to getting some time off soon. I'm Courtney. I'm the VP of Product and Marketing here at Mention Me. So as a VP of Product, I look after our product development, what we're going to build into the future, how the product works, and figuring out the right ways for it to drive value to you guys as customers or as to future customers maybe as well. But then obviously with my marketing hat on, I share some of the same problems, and I have a unique insight into all the kind of ups and downs that marketers are facing this year more than ever. So I like to run this session maybe as a fellow marketer more than the product person that mentioned me. So having said that, I would also like to keep this session as interactive as possible. Now that you've all like messaged into the chat, I want you to remember how to do that, because I really would love you to ask any questions that you want, put them in the chat box whenever they pop into mind. I'm definitely going to come back to them at the end. I probably won't do it during the flow of the talk. I'll wait until the end, then we'll dip into that chat and we'll see what the questions are, and we can have a bit of a Q&A. We are going to spend the bulk of the session talking about 5 key trends for 2021. But before we do that, I wanted to kind of take a bit of stock of what's happened in 2020. It's obviously been such a unique year, and I don't think we can talk about the future without reflecting on what's come before. So we'll spend a bit of time in the agenda talking through that stuff before we get on to the trends. But before I get into the meat of all of it, like really, why am I qualified to talk about this? Why is Mention Me qualified to talk about this, and why are we here? Well, Mention Me as a business, we were set up about actually a little over 7 years ago now. And our goal was to help businesses take advantage of customer advocacy. So we were really working in the sort of refer a friend space. Now, we know that advocacy and refer a friend, they were not always the heart of the marketing mix for businesses. And our founders were thinking, like, why is that? These are such great channels, and yet many brands are not sort of tapping into them as much as they could. And why is that? And we found it's really because there's this like relationship between two customers at the heart of a referral, right? And so that means it's like laden with psychology. Why would I tell my friend about something? It's got to make me look good. It can't just be commercial. There's all of this stuff kind of wrapped up into referral. And so that actually makes it quite hard to get it to work. And it was really around driving understanding of that psychology that Mention Me first built our business. And we did it by building a pretty sophisticated A/B testing platform. And what we learned was that you can't assume that you understand people's psychology. You actually have to get out there and test your hypothesis and keep trying different things and see what resonates with your customers. And Mention Me was really, really successful at that. And we now work with over 400 brands. And we actually go much wider than just customer psychology with referral at its core. We also expanded that kind of insights from referral, and we're now using that data and that insights to help brands tap into psychology to get customers to do other things as well. So customer engagement, maybe spend more, and we do it through different types of customer journeys. So we started from referral, we've really built out from that. And it's really, the stuff I want to talk to you about today is really also based on our experience with those 400 businesses and from the understanding that we've gleaned on customer psychology there too. So this stuff is all really important, and it weaves through my talk today as well. Now, before I really get started, I wanted to run a little poll because I kind of want to get a feeling for what you guys want to focus on next year in your marketing. So I'm going to switch on this poll now, and it's really super simple. It's only going to take you a second to fill this in. And hopefully, there you go. The poll should be live to you now, I hope. What I want to know is, what will you be focusing on next year? Will it be increasing customer loyalty, building brand advocacy, or getting repeat purchases? Oh God, there's obviously more to marketing than these three things, but these are the key areas I'm interested in right now. Looks like people are kind of, I see the bars going up and down. I think people are completing this poll right now. I'll just give it a minute or two to see how it nets out. Oh, I think they've, I was going to say, I think they've stopped bouncing around, but then they bounced again. Well, I think it's stable now. Okay, I'm going to end the poll. Hopefully everyone got a chance to contribute in there. So it looked to me like building brand advocacy is the most important focus for next year. That's 50% of people are saying building brand advocacy. But increasing customer loyalty and repeat purchases are tied for second, each with 25%. So a variety of goals, mostly around building brand advocacy. That's really interesting. Hopefully, I'm going to cover all of these topics actually today. So hopefully that is you're going to find something in here for everyone. I'm going to talk through quite a lot of data points in this presentation, but also quite a lot of examples. So I do hope when it comes to these topics, you're going to find something that's interesting. So as I said, I want to talk about 5 trends, but I do want to start with a bit of context from this crazy year that no one who has lived through will ever forget. Because I think that's a little bit important to sort of put your marketing into position for what you're thinking of for the future. So depending on what kind of business you are, I would say businesses have gone through some different trends as a result of COVID and the pandemic. And of course, that you want to take how you're exiting 2020, you want to take that into account when you're planning 2021. So when we were looking through all our data, and I'll actually share with you the data in a minute that goes behind this, we identified 4 categories of businesses. There were nest builders, pandemic pausers, stay-at-home heroes, and the revivalists. Now, nest builders are the types of businesses that got a little bit of a boost early on in, let's say, March and April, from people kind of stockpiling items that they would need to go through what they thought was going to be tough times during the lockdown. So, like, I don't think there's many dedicated toilet roll sellers, but they were things like food, drink, the essentials of home living. Then, in stark contrast, the poor old pandemic pausers, they kind of suffered the opposite fates. Now, these guys, maybe they had a lot of physical shop locations, maybe their warehouse couldn't support social distancing for various reasons. Maybe hospitality, travel, these businesses had to put their life on ice, basically. And I have to say, many of them are still struggling. Stay-at-home heroes kept us all from going stir crazy while we were working from home. And businesses in this category might be things like, my husband works for Sweaty Betty. This is the perfect example. Leggings. There's been a massive surge of people dressing in casual homeware, or like the desk that I'm sitting at now in the corner of my bedroom, the rush to buy home furnishings. So these are all things that had a boost as people were like sort of re-engineering their homes to become a more pleasant and relaxing place to work and to be all the time, basically. And then finally, coming on to the revivalists, these are the types of business that would have helped people have a better experience as they were coming out of lockdown, mostly in the summer months. It could be, some of them could even be having a bit of a peak now. So I'm thinking of things like bicycles, if you don't want to go on public transport, outdoor furniture, because you can only sit outside with your friends now. And so these kind of business segments and what happened to your business during COVID will really impact on your marketing goals. So for some of these businesses who've been very lucky, they've acquired a lot of new customers lately without actually having to do much with their marketing. And these guys will now be thinking about how they can retain those customers and get them to make a second purchase. And for other businesses like the pandemic pausers, I think maybe the attention will turn to reactivation. And so they'll have a different set of marketing needs. So I did promise you that I would show you the kind of data that backs this up. This is how the different segments of business look when their online orders compared to last year are plotted out on this chart. So you can see the nest builders having that sort of big peak at the beginning. The stay-at-home heroes, these guys were such lucky businesses and they've done really well throughout the pandemic. The revivalists have their sort of later surge, and those poor old pandemic pausers are, I sincerely hope that they will be coming back again in 2021. And then just to give you like a little zoom in, this is how this looks in the more recent, the last couple of months, because that's a little bit hard to see from the chart. There is definitely a long-lasting impact of COVID on all of these businesses. Okay, so you've seen how those segments performed. That was entirely based on the data and the insights that Mentor.me has from our clients. But let's have a little bit of more of a closer look into consumer shopping habits that are kind of underlying those results. And all of the stats that I've got up here on the screen now are from a survey which was commissioned by PFS. And this was to look at changes in customer online purchasing behavior. It looked also at the perceptions and expectations of brands that are changing a lot now around the pandemic. So what did they find? They found that 60% of consumers have purchased more goods since the lockdown began. They found that 53% have shopped online more. And 77% of those went on to say that they expect to continue to purchase more online once the lockdown is over. So I think all of us kind of have this hunch as well, right? And it is in the news a little bit that there is a potentially irreversible change going on here in consumer buying behavior. In the same survey, they also found that 39% of their respondents said they purchased new products online that they hadn't considered before. The examples they had were pet food and shoes. But I know that there was lots of other categories that were being driven online. There apparently 36% of consumers struggled with finding an online grocery delivery slot in particular, and they tried to get a slot and failed. And that actually might have pushed this sort of halo of new purchases out into other different sectors. And the example for this one I have is actually my in-laws, my parents-in-law, who started buying their fish online because they couldn't get not living fish, sorry, not like pets. They didn't buy pet fish online. They bought like fish to eat online from their local fish shop because they couldn't get a slot with an online delivery company. And they're like, who knew you could buy fresh fish online? But that was sort of the type of thing that was happening. And I think this would have pushed a halo effect out to a lot of other smaller businesses who could fulfill orders when supermarkets weren't able to. And in addition to this sort of rush online and new types of purchases online that we saw throughout the lockdown, I think there was also some big changes in terms of what people were buying. When it came to non-essential items, the survey found that 26% said they actually purchased less online clothing. And over half, 53%, said that they basically were spending less on fashion because they weren't going out. So with my husband working at Sweaty Betty, they had the opposite story, right? They got lots of people buying leggings because they were staying in, but I think that equally impacted in the opposite direction other businesses where they sold less because people weren't going out. In terms of cosmetics purchases, there was a similar kind of impact. I think there was a lot of people trying new types of cosmetics online, but overall, 18% bought fewer cosmetics and luxury goods since lockdown began. And technology was another sector that was impacted in this study. They said 19% of people decreased their tech spending. And it wasn't all downs. There were some ups as well in this study. 19% of people said they increased online purchasing for healthcare items. So that, I guess when you didn't want to go and queue up for the boots on the high street or it wasn't open, you would buy that type of thing online. And they also found that 25% of millennials increased their purchasing of home, garden, and DIY products. So this would be really like finding your stay-at-home heroes and using those to improve your workspace. And that was definitely a big trend as well throughout lockdown. Sorry, that was like a stats blast at you. I literally had hundreds of stats on that slide. the main point is that I firmly believe that the lockdown has changed UK shopping behaviour in so many ways. It's really touched everything. And then coming like right up to the present, our most recent kind of retail calendar event was Black Friday. And I was sitting around at Mention Me, all of us in our bedrooms, tapping away on our computers. We have been wondering for ages, like, what type of Black Friday would this be? Would there be an impact of COVID? Would it be up? Would it be down? And obviously, we have loads of retailers. We do actually have an annual Black Friday sweepstakes to see who can guess how many orders will flow through our platforms. But that isn't the only reason why we've been like Black Friday spotting, because obviously we've been wondering, like, will it fall flat, or is it going to be an indicator of future hope for the retail sector? So with checking up on the stats, actually, I think it paints a pretty positive picture. The sales increased to the tune of about 1.5 billion pounds. The traffic to our client brands, so the measure of how this increases year on year, is totally in line with last year. So last year it went up to 185%. This year it went up to 185% again. So we're seeing a nice positive build with Black Friday that way. And the metric that we obviously track quite a lot at Mention Me is the share rate, because that's the measure of how many people would share a brand after making a purchase. It actually increased after Black Friday this year compared to last year. So I think this bodes kind of pretty good for the future, actually. We've had a tough year, things are changing, but I do believe that what this tells me is that consumer spending will return in the next year and the next coming years ahead. So you've heard all about the context. Massive happenings, like I said, that I don't think we can ignore as we talk through how to build on it for 2021. But I'm now going to jump into the trends part of the topic and talk you through the 5 trends that I think are going to be super important as we emerge better marketers. We're going to be better marketers by the end of this, guys. And we're going to be driving great results by this time next year. So the first trend that I wanted to talk to you all about is trust. And trust is now, we actually did used to talk a lot about trust at Mention Me, because the trusting relationship with 2 friends is a really important part of referral. But actually, COVID has accelerated the importance of trust even more. So we run, every year at Mention Me, we run this advocacy report where we've done it, I think it's 3 years now, maybe 4 years now. And every year we ask the question, how important are the following brand qualities when you consider whether to refer a business to a family member or a friend? So the survey is all about advocacy and what drives people to become advocates. And this year, 95% of people said a brand I can trust is either the most important or the important factor when it comes to recommending a brand. So trust was important before. We've run this question for many years now, but that is a massive jump to go to 95%. I think it's probably 20 percentage points since 2019. So this is a huge surge. And I mean, incidentally, referrals are a really trusted source of advertising. 51% of consumers in that same survey said they would trust a friend or partner's recommendation more than any other source. And that's really what we're showing on this slide, is how that trust makes a great recommendation, right? Because there's this relationship between the 2 people, and they know that they'll neither put their reputation on the line nor talk about something irrelevant. And so that means like the message is really primed for success in the friend's mind. And Mention Me, we're not the only people who do surveys about trust. There's another really fantastic bit of research that comes out year after year called the Edelman Trust Barometer, and they did a special report for 2020. And they also have talked a lot about trust. And what they found this year is that brands are kind of, what have they said? This is their quote. They face a fundamental reordering of priorities after the global pandemic. So what they found was that 53% of their respondents say that whether you trust the company that owns the brand or the brand that makes the product is the second most important factor for purchasing from a new brand. So that makes trust the second most important factor, only superseded by price. They found that 70% said that trusting a brand is more important today than it was in the past, and that was universal across all age groups, genders, everything basically, income groups, everything. Everyone says trust is the most important, more important than in the past. 81% of their survey, so they trace that back to this idea of like personal vulnerability. So the sort of uncertainties and the worries that people are going through during COVID times around maybe their health, possibly their finances, maybe their job. Oh, there's other elements that might come into this. It could be around the privacy of their information. They all this kind of like pressure cooker of factors is coming in to make people say that is why trust is growing in importance to them. And 74% say that the brand's impact on society is another reason why trust has become important. So all of these trends are sort of rising and mounting now. And I think they are something that brands will need to build on in 2021. So what does trust mean to a brand? Like, it's kind of a funny concept when it comes to brand. Obviously, you trust people, but it's maybe a bit different to think of that in terms of a business. I think trusting a brand, and this is when we've asked about it in our own surveys, it basically means being very consistent with your customers and always delivering on the promise that you've made to them as part of your messaging or your sales cycle. So it's really about the whole experience. It could be browsing your site, buying the good, the fulfillment of the good. So it's about consistency. It doesn't mean you have to be like a standout socially aware brand. I mean, we'll come on to that topic a little bit in the future, but it's really this idea of consistency and delivering a consistent and good experience throughout the customer's journey. And this is absolutely more important now than ever before. So my next trend that I want to talk about is this idea of delivering a meaningful customer engagement. And I wish I had a marker pen, because I like to underline the word meaningful here, but I didn't do that before I made the slides, so never mind, you just have to go with me. The meaningfulness is the important part. Obviously, customer engagement is a tried and trusted marketing strategy, right? It's nothing new to you guys, and we know that it's proven to grow businesses and it increases your long-term revenue. Boost your profit margins, engage your customers. You can also reduce your churn rate and increase your customer revenue by an average 23%. But like all of these trends, COVID has accelerated the importance of meaningful customer engagement too, especially when we think about like that digital first world that people are now more than ever involved in. So what I want to talk about with this trend is how you can tailor your engagement approach to make it more meaningful, especially within that online context. And the important point here is using a segmentation and testing approach to unlock that meaning, to serve highly personalized and targeted messages that have a chance of resonating. So the key to being meaningful is always to anchor yourself in what's important in the customer's mind. And one way of doing that is by looking at the journey that they're in with your product or with their customer lifecycle. You could plot it out like I've done here with this example of this, the baby purchase that goes on to become a second purchase and then lots of purchases over the life of the customer. And this is a useful way to identify what your customers' challenges, pain points, and what they're trying to achieve, basically, at any key point during their life cycle. And there's plenty of opportunities when you map it out like this to engage your customers at different points. For example, you could use an insert in that first parcel to give you an enhanced personalized experience. You could drive a customer to leave a review after they've realized the value of your product, or you could offer a time-limited discount on a repeat purchase. These are all quite general tactics. But for today's session, what I want to do is zoom in on two quite specific aspects. The first one is the online element. So we won't talk much about these offline things. And I also want to talk about why. So what is the point of why you're trying to build this meaningful engagement? So first, I'm actually going to do the why first, even though I said it second. So first, the why. And this again relates back to COVID. I think going through the phase of lockdown and the time that came afterwards, when everyone was really hyper local in where they could go and what they could do, has really helped people cement their local communities. Things like, I don't know if you guys had this idea of gins and bins. I basically did it many times. I stood in my front garden and had a drink with my neighbors standing around my bins. We all came outside and we clapped for the NHS. We now have a really hot local WhatsApp group with, usually quite boring topics that I like to laugh about in the evenings. But what happened after all of this is this idea of community became so much more important than it was before. And so I think that sense of community is something to build on now, and digital engagement should be seen as a way for you to cement your brand's online community. So I don't just mean engagement for the sake of a one-off tactical action on behalf of your customers. I mean an engagement that builds a feeling of community with your customer base. And this is really important. And I've got some stats for you from Deloitte here. They found that 51% of UK consumers have actively engaged with a brand in a community, in a sort of engaging fashion, not just a purchase, but a community kind of fashion in the last year. And that 40% of consumers would spend more when they felt they were part of an online community. And that actually rises in the younger generations. 58% of millennials will spend more when they're part of a community. So this has become really a vital way of us living with each other. And I think it's something that has to be carried into online. So there's trickle-down benefits of this community building stuff as well. Of course, it's going to nurture your customer relationships, but it may also help you gather more insights about your customers. You might be able to use those to improve your product, change your services, and become even more tailored. So I just want to stress here that the goal of this meaningful engagement in 2021 should be to foster this kind of community spirit with your brand and build a longer lasting two-way relationship with your customers. So it's not just getting one post, it's about really building something over time. And now the other side, I did say I wanted to talk about two elements. The first was the why, that was the community spirit. And the other element I want to discuss is the online aspect. And I've got on the slide here some examples. These are real life examples of Mention Me clients using our platform to run different engagement tactics to try to build different ways of building up that community feel. Now you could go, the nice thing with all of these is they really work alongside the referral program. So they kind of work in synergy because they're running off the same platform. So you could do something really overt, like the one that I'm showing you in the center. This is Lovecrafts. And they are just basically saying, come on into our community. That's how they're doing their community spin. They're just inviting knitters to come in and meet with other knitters. Or you could do something a little bit more subtle, like the visual at the top with the stakes and the little NPS dial. You can create a sense of a two-way relationship with your customers by giving them a chance to give you meaningful feedback. And I think most marketers, I don't know where this stat is from, but 57% of marketers say that getting feedback is the best way to improve a customer experience. So NPS is really good for that. It's a great way to understand your customer sentiment. And using the Mention Me platform, which obviously has experimentation sort of built in, we can give you different flavors of NPS. You can show messaging based on whether someone rated you a 3 versus rated you a 10. And you can then go on to incentivize someone who said they liked you to go ahead and refer their friends. So there's a really nice tie-in with NPS there in that kind of community spirit. Or lastly, like the Ted Baker example in the top other corner, social media, of course, is a massively powerful tool for building up community. It is unfortunately very saturated with brands trying to get their message across to grab the consumer's attention. So you do have to do it carefully. But again, the nice thing about using the Mention Me platform is that we could A/B test different call to action for social media posts and see which ones are the ones that are really going to unlock a customer to make that social commitment to your brand. Now, I do actually have coming up now, let's hope this works, I have a lovely little segment from Ursula Casserly, who works at Benefit. So I guess many people know the brand, and it's really famous for its kind of community spirit. And she's going to talk through the ways in which they have optimized their customer engagement. So let me just make sure I can start this video for you. And here we go.
Hi, I'm Ursula. I work at Benefit Cosmetics, and I'm going to be talking to you today about meaningful brand engagement. I guess one of the ways in which we usually do meaningful brand engagement is actually with our store staff. If you don't know Benefit Cosmetics, we are a global beauty brand. We originated in San Francisco, and we believe that laughter is the best cosmetic. Um, yeah, customer engagement. So, one of the ways in which we engage with our customers is face to face. We provide not only beauty products to customers, but also brow services, waxing, tinting across the UK. And the interaction that our customers have with our store staff is probably the best way of engaging them. We have very loyal service customers and product customers who purchase in store. So we lost that this year, and instead we had to.
Oh, I have a problem with my video.
Rely on our digital and social channels. So our social team came up with some really fun content that was going out daily and really keeping everybody who was following there laughing and engaged. There was things about banana bread, challenges, and if you know the Benefit brand, we are silly and fun and not so serious. So we really pulled on that side of our brand DNA. That campaign, together with Benefit, went across our CRM as well. So on a Sunday evening, you would get a email that would outline all of the activities coming up that week, and we saw really high engagement with that. I guess the best way of keeping customers engaged that we measured was, and I think that measurement is so important with customer engagement. So one of the ways in which we saw a big success was to add QR codes to our parcels that would you would receive your items, and on the underside of the lid there would be a QR code with the words "scan for a surprise," which is very Benefit. That QR code then took you back to the site where you would get a pop-up that only you would see, and it would show you an incentive to make your second purchase. We saw really, really good engagement with that, and it really answered the question.
Oh, guys, I'm sorry. I think I'm going to stop Ursula there because I don't think she's working very well. I thought I'd fixed it, but I'm not really sure. I'll go back to the slides. That's a shame. We'll send the video out when we send the follow-ups after the session, I'm afraid. I think we'll have to do it that way. That's too bad. She was describing a really lovely way that they've moved this kind of online, they've moved this sort of omni-channel community shop-based experience. They've translated it into an online social media play, and they've used that to continue building engagement throughout the pandemic. But I'll let you watch the full set of it when we send out the presentation. So I'll move on now to the third trend that I wanted to talk about, which was really around creating that sort of seamless digital experience. And this does actually work like really in lockstep with that second trend around customer engagement. And I think you'll see what I mean as I go on. But where do we start with this one? So 64% of consumers, they say that they feel that that companies have lost some human touch of customer experience. And I think that's a lot of, that may be in the physical world, but a lot of it is also comes across in the online world. And being a digital first brand is obviously something that we're all aware of. It's not a new concept, but it's actually now even more critically important in the post-COVID world because lots of people can't pop to the shops for everything they need. And of course, they are going online. So that means that if you have a great online experience that captures that touch of humanity, you are going to be in a really strong position when compared to your competition. And that does come naturally for some businesses, that kind of online touch. Like if a direct-to-consumer brand, maybe there's some of these new businesses like Made.com or Birchbox, they're digital natives and they have definitely got the jump on omni-channel retailers when it comes to providing a seamless digital experience. But we do all know, I hope we all know nowadays, that our website is basically the digital equivalent of a smiling shop, isn't it? And they should definitely have the feeling of bringing a customer in and welcoming them inside to see their favorite products. So let's talk a little bit more about how you can create that feeling with a digital experience. Because of course you can't really see your e-commerce customers, but you can learn about them based on their on-site behavior. And I'm showing this picture, which is basically illustrating the idea of some different types of messages you can show using the Mention Me platform. And we do this by drawing on segmentation. And we do that using sometimes standard elements like age, gender, maybe size if it's clothing. We can also do it based on more sophisticated elements like what they've shopped on before, how much is their basket size, and if we know whether they've come back or how long it has been since they've come back. So we use those insights to strategically segment either new or existing customers, and then we layer these different combinations to get more fancy as necessary, and we target our messaging based on what we know about those customers. So the options that I'm showing here, so you could show referral, you could show that sort of NPS, little mini NPS survey that Ted Baker's showing. You could get a discount off a future purchase, or the message that is with the brand for Swoon is actually pushing people across the breadth of their range. So this is more about cross-sell and shopping across other categories, but without a discount. So it's a discount-free kind of brand message. And some of those you could potentially use like this kind of community customer engagement message in one of these slots as well, right? That is actually where the sort of love knitting, join our community message could go to. But the idea is to use what you know about the segment that your customer is in and what they're looking for, and create this sort of seamless digital experience to make your website feel as welcoming as a shop. So here's an example, maybe a little bit of an easier to understand example from one of our clients, Schuh. And I'm not sure, I did hear at one point that Schuh was going to join us for the call. So I don't know if they're here. I love this example because I think it's such a smart way to think about landing the right message at the right time. So what we have here is just a simple visualization of the customer life cycle across the bottom from the first purchase through to second and subsequent purchases. And across the top are the type of messages that are being showed to customers as they go through those different segments and different stages. So at the beginning of their purchasing journey, they can be seen something a bit more tactical. There isn't much of a relationship there yet. So it could be something like a limited time discount. In that case, that increased the repeat rate by 9.3%. Or we could cross-sell them to other categories. But then you can see later on in the life cycle, more around the second purchase, we show this sort of different type of message. It's not about a discount or a tactical action. It's actually about sustainability. And so I think that really kind of captures this idea of like being so flexible with your digital shop that you can deliver this amazing, seamless experience that's really targeted with the right message at the right time. So that brings me to purpose. I almost said to purchase, to purpose. And purpose was already a rising trend before COVID, but like once again, there's been a huge acceleration in this area since the pandemic. If I was talking about purpose this time last year, I would have said, you know, your brand purpose has a major impact on how your brand is viewed. It can be a driving force behind your success. And businesses who focus on this kind of long-term brand building are definitely going to derive long-term value from it. I don't think there's one size fits all approach to purpose. It's basically going to depend on your business model, your products. And then the main thing is to get your marketing and your team aligned around the purpose so they can all deliver a consistent message. And that's what I would have said last year. But since March this year, I would say the importance of this kind of brand building and purpose-led messaging has become even more super important because people are feeling more uncertain. They feel more money conscious. They're not sure about how the future is going to pan out. And so they're becoming even more considerate of the type of brands they shop with. And last year, again, I would have talked about purpose coming from within, coming from the way you define your brand. But actually what we've seen this past year is that purpose can also come from your response to the pandemic, and customers have responded really favorably to brands who've showed they're very aware of the pandemic context. So from our latest research, which I've referred to a few times now, we asked in there a special question this year about brand qualities, and 76% of the respondents said the way in which the brand responded to COVID was important, was vital as to whether they would recommend the brand. And 75% said it was also equally important to whether they would purchase again. So you can see that the sort of response to COVID can be a way of also infusing your brand with a bit of purpose. And we saw during lockdown this hashtag coming up, support small businesses. And it was really like the background of this is really, it's around getting people to shop locally, like maybe from a family restaurant, or getting vouchers from like their local hair salon that you could spend later or something like that. But this really shows how this response to COVID, being a local brand, these are all new ways to inspire, or to infuse your messaging with purpose. So let's leave the high street behind for a minute there with that supporting small businesses. And here's some more examples from a digital space. You can reiterate your purpose in your online journey as well. So here's two examples from Mention Me clients. The yellow one is actually from a business called All Plants, who's like a vegan food delivery service. They're obviously really purposeful brand as it is, but they sort of got that message across in their referral marketing on Black Friday. They rebranded it to Green Friday. And the incentive from their referral campaign was to plant a tree rather than to give your friend a reward or something like that. And that's a great way to get your purpose to also be something quirky to help you stand out. The other example is actually from Lola's Cupcakes, which you can't really see any branding on there, but it's from Lola's Cupcakes. And during the pandemic, they decided to branch out of their usual cupcakes. And they started to use their infrastructure to deliver fruit and veg boxes instead. And that was actually a really nice way to acquire new customers whilst also doing something really friendly. So purpose, that was my trend number 4, and an important one, I think, going forward, whether it comes from yourself or from your response to the circumstances around you. And now, my last trend, which is good because I'm losing my voice. This one is around the importance of picking the right metrics to track. So what I want to say here is that it's really important to know the ones that matter to you and keep your eyes laser focused on those ones whilst you're adapting to new challenges. It's going to help you keep a steady focus when the world is changing all around you, basically. So I don't know about you, but here at Mention Me, we had a lot of uncertainty around our marketing budget. And in the end now, like, things have stabilized and is absolutely fine. But I think a lot of marketers had to rethink their priorities between customer acquisition and retention. There's definitely a lot more scrutiny on ROI. We've got to look at every spend to make sure it all makes sense. And I think that's true in many businesses. I think nowadays an expensive, untrackable activity is no longer an option, and we're all turning to much more measurable channels, such as referral, really. The digital channels are great in that way, but they're all very measurable. But prior to the pandemic, 44% of businesses said they were focusing primarily on new customer acquisition. Now, I think with the recent boom in online shoppers, plus this climate of cost control, means I think more marketers are going to be realizing the untapped value of their existing customers. So picking metrics that have to do with your existing customers is going to be a really important focus in 2021. And to explain that marriage of like brand building, working to drive your marketing and maximizing your existing customer base, I like to use this kind of image of a cycle of customer-led growth. And this is really around how that retention focus can help you grow your whole business. So if you acquire your customers through referral, they've come in predisposed to liking and trusting your brand. by using those customers with tactics like to drive their engagement and their positive sentiment, you increase their stickiness, drive their loyalty, get to the next purchase, but eventually also they become an engine for growth for you as well. So this is really a nice way of thinking of how you can make your customers into an asset for your business. And when you get that right, it changes the metrics that you think about. And this is where it all comes back to the numbers again. And that will, if you have a different view of your metrics, of course, it can change how you allocate your budget and how you change your spending plans. And this simple graph is actually from a real life customer. So it's a genuine data set. And it shows how we think about the breakdown of something we call extended lifetime value. So the lifetime value of the customer in this picture is in orange. It's £254. That's the revenue that's realized from the purchases they're making. But there's also this other metric that's really important that needs to come into the mix. And that's the £83 that they are driving through making recommendations and bringing in other new customers. That's the sort of extension of it. And when you can see that bigger picture, that changes the way you can think about your marketing spend. And so having the right metric in mind means maybe you can afford to spend a bit more to acquire those customers, or maybe you can target those customers to create social media lookalike audiences, or maybe you realize that you need to get customers not just to the point where they're making lots of purchases, but also to the point where they're ready to refer. So it's all about understanding a key metric and then letting that help you drive your marketing. There you go. That's it. That's my 5 trends, and a lot of talking from me and a whirlwind tour. Number 1, building trust, because everyone's feeling uncertain. We all need a bit more trust in our lives. Number 2, creating meaningful customer engagement. Sorry, I've got my hand up to count. It's over there. Creating meaningful customer engagements, and that idea that communities are a really effective way of driving revenue. Number 3 was about the digital experience, helping you land the right message at the right time. Number 4 is finding your brand's purpose, either like from something that's intrinsic to your brand or possibly from some good deeds that you've done in the past year. And then last of all is figuring out the right core metrics to track so that you can make those wise investment decisions on how to grow off the back of your happy customers. So I am going to pause there. I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to get over into the chat room. I'm going to change my screen over there now too. And let's see if there's any questions to cover off in the next, I think we've got about 10 minutes. Let's see if anyone's really wanting to chat. Okay. So I can see one right now. I'll start with the one that I've got from Mark. And then if anyone else also wants to add in, oh, there's a few here as well. So there's one, okay, I just have to learn to navigate my questions. Okay, so the first one I'm going to tackle is there may be barriers to referral. For example, psychology of sharing a secret source. And what advice do we have for perhaps high ticket items or things that elite audiences where they want to stand out from the crowd? I think that's a really interesting question. There's this idea of like exclusivity and not giving away like something that you think is exclusive. And I actually think it's so interesting because I think it's kind of the opposite dynamic here. Referral works super duper well in the luxury item because people love to show off, basically. And every time we have a client that works in the luxury space, they tend to have above average rates of sharing. Net out. The place where we do sometimes see a little bit more of that, like I want to have an exclusive, is actually like more in some different sectors, not necessarily like the most expensive sectors, but maybe more where things are more common, but you're worried that the person that you're referring is going to have the thing, you're going to turn up to the party in the same dress, like that type of phenomenon. But actually for the luxury end of the spectrum works really, really well. Then there is another question a little bit further down saying, is there a copy of the session that we can watch later? Yes, of course there will be. I'm sure Eliza will send that one out. And then there's a question that I'm not sure what it relates to, which is what are the relative proportions of the typologies? I guess I moved past that section in the deck and I don't really know which one it might be related to. Mark, if that's your question and you want to write me another little note and just elaborate on it, I'll come back to that question. I'll go now to this one from Nick. And the question is, can you give me an example of how you might use your referral info to create a lookalike audience? So you can get an extract of the people who are referring from the platform. You can work with your CSM to do that. And then you can use it to feed into Facebook or maybe Google or something like that. And then you can use their lookalike audience feature to find people who have those same attributes. That's how we think about doing that one. And I don't see an elaboration on the question from Mark yet. I'll just give it a couple more minutes. See if anyone else has one. We still got a couple of minutes before the end of the session. Okay, now I see. Okay, so the question was about the typologies and what they're the proportions of nest builders, pandemic pausers, etc. So, I think I probably wouldn't be able to give you a great answer there, Mark, because that data is based off our 400 clients that we work with that mention me, and it's not necessarily related to the wider ecosystem. And obviously Mention Me works a lot with digital brands. We are a specialist in those kind of digital challenger brands, people who have already got a degree of sophistication. So we probably over-index on stay-at-home heroes, businesses that are benefiting from the move online. That's definitely what we saw. We're probably less we have customers who are less exposed to being pandemic pausers, although we do have a section of our client base that are work in travel, and that was tough for those brands, and we worked with them through that phase. But most of our businesses, digital first challenger brands, are actually doing quite well now. Anyone else? I don't see any more questions coming in. Okay, that's great. I think I'll wrap it up there, guys. I hope that nobody else has any more questions. I'll just say thank you very much for joining me. It was a really great session. It was really lovely to talk through all of that stuff that's been going on in my brain for a while, how I'm thinking about how next year is going to pan out. I hope you found it useful. We will definitely send a recording afterward. And yeah, have a lovely, like I said at the beginning, have a lovely Christmas break if that's your next stop on your in your life. Cheers. Bye.